Settle down.
No one.
All right, we're gonna call the regular meeting of the school board for School District 200 to order. Before we do roll call, Andy, we're gonna have Peter sworn in. Then he can take part in the roll call.
Come up in front of the camera, Peter. Peter is, for those of you watching on cable television, is our newly appointed school board member, and he's accepted it. In our last board meeting, we did officially approve, and this is your first night where you get to actually officially take some action. So, do you swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States of this state and will discharge faithfully the duties of office of school board member of Independent School District 200 to the best of your judgment and ability?
I will.
Congratulations. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right. With that, let's call roll.
Joe Becker.
Present.
Andy Bertram, here. Peter Bussenbach.
Present.
Dan Cater.
Here.
Scott Gergen.
Here.
Lisa Dean.
Here.
Russ Roloff.
Here.
Superintendent Collins.
Here.
All right, terrific. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion. I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved. Okay, I have a motion to approve the minutes from the February 22nd, 2017 regular board meeting.
I will make that motion.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Motion carries. Could I get a motion to approve the bills payable?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Motion carries. And with that, we have some good news.
And I don't know if we want to invite everybody in so they
Bring
can listen
everybody
to, I don't know if there's room for everybody, but
I don't know, how big is everybody?
I don't know.
We have a lot of winter sports success.
yeah, check it out, Scott, and see what you,
We had a lot
Can they
of winter
outfit?
sports success.
we'll start out with wrestling up front, but we're inviting others in.
Start with wrestling and go down to other sports. I will not judge.
We don't have a state champion.
I will not judge. That's true. We will go up to other sports. So we're gonna start with the wrestling team, and then we'll have skiing and swimming and diving come up in a minute.
So if the rest of the wrestling team wants to come, yeah, front and center for,
Wrestlers up front, the rest of you guys hold the walls for a minute, and then we'll switch.
We had a lot more pressure with the other sports in here this year. Changing it up on us. Man, I didn't expect this. Well, the wrestling team had high aspirations this year. Last year we took 5th in state. We wanted to be top 4, top 3 if possible, and we fell just short of that in the third place match. We lost to STMA 36-33. So we're literally under a minute away from beating them. We had one of our studs was winning the match with under a minute to go and gets put to his back and pin. So didn't quite go our way, but our team had a great year. We rebounded well from losses that had occurred earlier in the year. We lost to Zembroda Mazeppa, who was a Class A state champion this year. We lost to them by 13 at the Clash, bounced back 3 weeks later and beat them by 20 over at a different tournament. So that was a big win for us. And like I said, they ended up being the Class A state champions. Another win that we bounced back from, and it was close to home for me because Owatonna's always been good in wrestling. They stole a state title from me as a team state title back when I was a younger kid. And so we lost to them in a duel a month before the state tournament, and they beat us by 13, and we beat them by 7 first round of state. So the kids were resilient this year, and they really believed in the process. As we moved on this season, they just kept getting 1% better every day, and that's what I always preach to the kids is the wins and losses, they're gonna get those, and you can't really control them, but just put in the effort every single day in the room and believing in the process, and at the end, you'll see the success or the gains, and we were able to see that for the most part, so it's pretty cool. To my direct left here is Adam McSorley, we call him Junior, because he is a junior, and he is, we actually just figured this, he's 150 wins and 30 losses. Of the 30 losses, which puts him like 4th all time for Hastings, and of his 30 losses, 17 of them were from state champions. So it's pretty amazing. One of our assistant coaches looked that up today, which is pretty neat. He is committed to St. Cloud State University, so that's where he plans on attending next year. Trey Rogers is a junior captain, 4.0 student class president, 3 years in a row. His goal was to be a state champion this year. He ran into a buzzsaw of a wrestler who was a 2-time state champion and got beat by him. But he had a great year. He set the single season takedown records with 247 takedowns. So pretty amazing, great year for him. To his left is Jackson Schickel, a senior, and actually happens to be the cousin of Junior here, and they inversed on purpose. So yeah, you have that going for him. Jackson is a 2-year starter for us, and he won 85 matches in 2 years. 2-time All-State wrestler. His goal, just like the rest of these two, was to be a state champion. Fell just a little bit short this year in the semifinals. He lost to the kid that eventually won it, and he had the kids like all the way up, and I still just have nightmares of it. But he is not going to let that slow him down. He's wrestling at Mary University in North Dakota next year, same place where Austin Eichmann is wrestling currently. So we have some big shoes to fill with these two seniors leaving us. And then to his left is TJ Pottinger, another 4.0, tied with Trey for #1 student in the grade of the junior class. And TJ had 171 takedowns this year, which puts him on the single season record board as well. Again, all these kids' goals is to be a state champ, and they put in the time and the effort to do that. It doesn't always work out, as we know in sports. But TJ, from last year, he had 71 takedowns in a year to 171. So he became a completely different kid in one season, and came a long way. Again, Trey and TJ are captains 2 years in a row. These two were co-MVP of the season. So great year. Kids wrestled super hard. Ended up in 4th place. A lot of fun. Also, too, our team GPA is 3.61, which puts us at the gold standard for wrestling. They give out plaques for gold, silver, bronze.
Well, thank you, and as you'll hear me say and you know this, it's about winning, but it's also about life lessons. And I think, you started out where resilient, improving, and that doesn't always happen. And sometimes you put in a ton of work and you don't get the rewards of that. But what a great year, and continue to represent Hastings very well, and we appreciate that when you're out in other communities. And that goes with all of our student athletes. It's how we're represented as a school when you're elsewhere, and we really appreciate that. So thank you for all the time and effort.
Thanks.
Well, with the Alpine ski team, we got Jacob Pining, Shannon O'Connor, and Caleb Lugren. This was Jacob's 4th trip to state, twice with the team and twice as an individual. This is Shannon's 2nd one, one with the team and one as individual, and this was Kayla's first time this year at the state. The boys ended up 2nd in the conference, and the girls ended up 2nd in the conference, not by a lot. The nice thing is this year we had no seniors on the team, so we get everybody back next year. And plus we get one of our major athletes who was injured last year will hopefully be back because of a football injury, and that'll help us get back. The boys ended up 4 points short of going to state, which is thousandths of a second, basically. And the girls both ended up 3rd, so we're looking forward to next year. I think both the boys and girls team can make it to state with the talent and stuff we've had. We've been improving so much over the last few years. I think all 3 of them started 7th grade. So it's been really good. And hopefully the future keeps going as good with us. So.
Well, we thank you for your time and dedication in a sport where we always don't get 1,000 fans or 500 fans. It's and the weather conditions and the parents, and we know from past years sometimes tough to recruit student athletes to that environment. So we appreciate your continued dedication and commitment for us as a school district and what you do for us. So we really appreciate it. And next year when you're back here, we're expecting. We're expecting. So thank you very much, and thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
No, we're going to walk on your one foot.
Oh, okay. I'm Jerry Rupp. I'm the head swim coach for the boys. This is my assistant, Kate McAlpin. She's really the brains of the operation. She does everything. I just show up and whatever, but, yeah, push buttons, yeah, that's what I do with stopwatches. But anyway, I have 5 guys here with me tonight. Going to go through what they did. First of all, in the conference season, we ended up placing 3rd in conference, which we were pretty happy about because I had 28 kids on my team this year. 20 of them were 9th grade or younger. So basically, we had like a middle school team going against varsity kids. So it was really kind of a challenge for us to try to develop a program with that at that conference level. They did really well considering their youth, and we're really excited about what they're going to do, going forward. Getting bigger as boys will do, hoping to get a little strength and grow a little bit, and been working real hard. So we're looking forward to what's going to happen next year. Going forward into what you call the championships season, I guess, we were kind of not sure if we'd get anybody qualified for state. I kind of had high hopes that we'd get at least one relay qualified for state. We knew that Volvo would make it in diving, and the guys here had a great section meet. They dropped a ton of time. They qualified in both the 200 medley relay and also the 400 freestyle relay. Excuse me, free relay. They got into state, and we thought that they were probably going as fast as they're going to go, and they ended up going faster each time they swam and moved up on their places. Our medley relay ended up placing 11th overall. The 400 freestyle relay placed 12th overall. And we'll just kind of go through the guys here. Jackson Gergen, our first guy down there, he's a junior. He swam breaststroke for us on our medley relay. He was also anchor of the 400 freestyle relay. Next is Aaron McCullough. He was the butterflyer on our medley relay and also on the 400 free relay. And he's also a 4.0 student, #1 in his class. Was pretty cool academically. Carter Williams. We always have fun with Carter because we always joke he's in over his head. But he really held his own.
They really appreciate it.
I know.
Every time doesn't it get
When he
better?
jumped into that pool, it's 8 feet deep, and he went to the bottom, so he's in over his head. So anyway, I get a lot of mileage out of that joke. But anyway, he really held his own against guys that were, maybe a little bit more talent than him, but he really had that size of the dog in the fight type of thing. Went out and held his own and did what he needed to do on the relay to make sure their guys were in position to do their job. So it's really cool to see him step up and make that. Next is John Rupp. He also was one of the individual swims at state. He was in the 100-yard backstroke. He ended up placing 13th overall. And we keep a top 16 all-time list of all the events we swim here. Well, Junior here knocked me off the list down by 1 spot. I was number 3 all-time, now number 4 because he took me down by 1 notch. He's also a 4.0 student and matched up with a couple of those guys that were #1 in his class in the junior class ranking. And we have Vova Tipler. What can you say about Vova? Beginning the first day of practice, I said, Vova, you are the best diver in the state. No question about it. The only person that can beat you is you. And diving is such a mental thing. It's so hard to stay focused, stay sharp when you're in the moment. Vova had an amazing state meet. To watch him just pull away with each dive, get better and better, and watch a guy just fade off in the sunset. He had 2 dives that are not quite his best, but still scored well enough to continue, his success and marching forward. The last dive he did was a forward 3 1/2 somersault. Again, you just kind of go, yeah, I think that was 3.5. You can't even count it, it's so fast. He ripped that dive. If you ever watched the Olympic diving, you see him when they hit that pool, just pow in the water, there's no splash, no nothing. That was what he did in that last dive, just ripped it. He scored 72 points on 1 dive. It's insane to do that, okay? To put it in perspective, what he won by, 76 points, it would have taken the rest of the field 2 more dives each to catch him. So what he did in 11, it would have taken everybody else 13. And this is state level caliber diving, so what he did was just amazing. State record's 533 points. He's at 494 right now, so it's doable next year, and that's, I think, his goal. We kind of joked that he had a home field advantage because he goes and dives at the U a couple times a week for club. So he knew the boards, he knew everything. He knew he wasn't going to hit the board like last year. He corrected that mistake, and it was just fun. And he was even fun to watch the crowd because there was about 3,000 people that come to the state meet. When he nailed that last dive, the whole place just erupted, and just to see 3,000 people up on their feet and cheering and screaming, and even his own competitors were just doing this, really, it's just so fun to see him because he's truly one of those guys that he's always encouraging everybody else, and he's cheering for everybody else, and he's really genuinely liked by the rest of his competitors. There wasn't one guy that said, so-and-so, whatever. They all were happy for him that he did what he did. So we had a great season. Like I said, we graduated Aaron. The rest of the guys are all coming back, and hope we can build on what we had this year.
Well, again, congratulations. And I told you I wanted to be there this year because I saw last year when you had that little mistake. But I was going to ask what motivates somebody when they blow the field away by that much, but you already said it. Then the next motivation is to go after the all-time scoring record.
And coincidentally, excuse me, his coach at the U is the person who holds the state record. So he's cheering for him too to come out, come on, go get my record. So it's kind of exciting to see that as well.
Well, I'm glad it's paid dividends now that we fixed the pool and the board. We didn't even have a diving board for a while. They got the anchors broken and everything. So.
Yeah, it's so nice.
We
to have-
needed it.
Yeah, yes.
Well, and you know what's cool about that too is that Kenny put together a diving invitational at the end of the season. Basically what it is, it's a chance for all these teams to do an 11 dive list because typically, in conference season you do 6 dives. For championship season it's 11 dives, and so you never get a chance to do your entire list. So she put this thing together, kind of a neat thing. We have schools from Eden Prairie, Lakeville, some of the Rochester schools. They come from all over the place, and they've heard about this meet, and it's really picking up steam. And we get so many positive comments about our facility, the lighting, the boards, how comfortable it is in there, and it's just they just rave about what we have here, and it's so cool to be able to showcase that and to be able to demonstrate that a good job was done, and it shows. So.
It's funny when people come in, they're like, this doesn't look like it used to.
It used to be the yellow pool. It's not yellow anymore. It's like, no, the lighting's better and everything is way better. So.
Well, again, we've had years of dedication from both of you as well, and it continues to pay dividends, and these student athletes are so fortunate. And if you don't want to wear the bow tie next year, you don't have. Don't make him.
Don't let him boss you around.
So don't let him boss you around. You'll be a senior next year. Take control. But again, thank you for your dedication and time, and thank you for your dedication and time.
Thank you.
I wear them on special occasions.
Use them on the poster for becoming my own question. The last 5 questions.
And with that, we'll get a superintendent's report for the next couple items.
And facility committee members, you can hop in and share with the board members as well. We have our next meeting is next Tuesday night at McCullough Elementary. Again, if any of those community members are watching, it's been great to see the continued dedication. In other years, we've had some people who have faded off because it's one heck of a commitment to come every other week for 2 hours, and you're not listening to some of the most exciting information in the world. You're talking about roofs, you're talking about HVAC, you're talking about boilers, pumps, etc. So thank you. The commitment, dedication has been really, really good, and I think we're at a point now. I know that Scott McQueen and I thought that maybe by about this next meeting we were going to have a recommendation coming from that group. We're not quite there. Wouldn't you agree, Russ and Peter and Joel?
Yeah.
And that's fine, because that also lets the board and the community know how serious this group is taking it. They want more questions answered. They want more time. And so our next meeting will be at McCullough Elementary. I'm guessing then our following meeting, hopefully the weather will be a little bit better, and I want to start out at Todd Field on that one to give everybody start out at Todd Field on that one, and then come back here and have some conversation here so everybody can get the feel of below grade, having to pump sewage, up if need be, look at the wall, see how far it actually is away from the field, and some of that. And our last session, we reviewed again some of the information I shared with you that the community can go for about a $44 million bond with no increase to the taxpayer. And so the committee knows that, and then now we're just trying to separate, the wants and the needs, and the committee is really working through that process. And so again, I believe that a recommendation will be coming to the board at some point in May, I believe, is what we should do as a school board. And I know at our next work session, we as board members will kind of talk about how we handle that recommendation and what we feel about that. And what further questions that you might have, because Joe and Peter and Russ and I have all had the opportunity to listen to all the in-depth discussion, but you haven't, and I know that we might need a little bit more time for the rest of you as board to ask some of those in-depth questions to committee members. So it's been a really good process. It's still moving forward, and that's fine. And board members, I don't know if there's anything else that you would share at this time, or if I did a decent job of recapping it.
Yeah, I'll say that it's been very good for me to go through this, and I think everybody else. It kind of makes us realizing how big our campus is with all the schools, and how nice a lot of these schools are, how our facilities are, and it just takes money to upkeep on things that are nice and to keep them in good shape. So that's a big realization to me.
Any other comments? And if not, that's fine.
I mean, we are making progress. I mean, we're narrowing it down. We've kind of started broad and, kind of learning, and now we're starting to get to the tough decisions, right?
And it does take more time. I mean, it's, when we have a 7-member board, think of the time it takes for us to make decisions, and now you have a 24-member group. It's just that much more dialogue. But I've been very happy with the process, the questions, and again, the commitment and dedication. It's been a great representation of our community. So thank you to all those individuals who stepped forward. And as I shared with them, and I'll share again at this board level, and I shared it as I've been going around talking to all of our staff, every school district in the state of Minnesota, whether they're Randolph, Cannon Falls, Hastings, South Wash, Farmington, about every 10 years, you need to reinvest in your buildings. That's the cycle that you need to be on, in addition to trying to do as much maintenance as you can along on the way. So I just wanted to mention that again as we're being taped on television. The ADSYS grant, I just want to share with you. Dave Hayman corrected me today and said it's really not a grant, Tim. It's a pool of dollars that the state of Minnesota has set aside, saying, we realize that we fund you on your regular student, we realize that we fund you on your special ed, but we also realize that there's some students that are at that in-between and we don't want to get them to special ed. And I didn't write down and memorize exactly what ADSYS stands for, but it's alternative delivery of instructional services. So basically it's saying, give the school district some money if they submit a good plan. And we applied for the ADSYS dollars, probably is it 2 or 3 years ago, Kim, when Lisa was our director of teaching and learning. And we received some dollars which helped to go to pay some of our social workers' costs. Also, we received some of those dollars then specifically at the middle school go to our reading intervention program, where we're able to take students for 3 weeks to 6 weeks at a time and give them some direct instruction. And that pool of dollars, there's some more out there that we could apply for. And part of it then gets tied into your special ed aid, because if you apply for it and you get more dollars than if you're already at the cap on your special ed aid. Am I saying this correctly, Kim?
Right, it's all part of the special ed formula.
So at one point in time, we were thinking these were extra dollars, which were like a grant. That's why I called it a grant, because at that time I saw them extra dollars. But now if a district is at their cap and you go for more of these dollars in this pool, then they adjust your formula over here. And as you know, as I've talked about the special ed formula changing over these years, it also gets into that if your base of special ed was up here, then you would have more room to go for those ADSYS dollars. So I'm sharing this for a couple of reasons, to let you know that we're constantly scratching for every dollar we can get. 3 weeks ago I went to a QComp meeting, 4 weeks ago to a QComp meeting with our teachers looking at submitting a plan so that we can get QComp dollars. And even though, and this plan took a lot of work, and so I'm also sharing that, giving kudos and shout outs to Dave Hayman, who would say that Jen Reichel and Amy Berge were the ones that put in a ton of work on this. And they did it right before spring break and right during spring break, and with the approach of, we're still going to do all the work for these ADSIS dollars, and we're still going to submit it to get our foot in the door. And then we'll find out if we get granted them, and we'll see if the formula changes or whatever, because then we have the right to say no to it. So that's part of my main purpose for sharing that with you. It's twofold. That when we see dollars that are out there, we go after it. We put in the work. And I also then wanted to give kudos and credit to those three individuals who put a ton of time on this, knowing that, well, this might not even be a 50-50 at best, but let's get our foot in the door. And part of that is we learned that with QComp. 10 years ago, there were so many QComp dollars, and districts submitted their applications and then backed off because it was capped. Well, then what happened when the state increased those QComp dollars, they gave first priority to those that already had their plan in and submitted. And that was part of the premise of us saying, well, let's put in a ton of work knowing that we might not get it right now, but let's get our foot in the door. So I just wanted to share that with you. And then the third item that I have that's not on the agenda, but because I've been out this week and I've done 4 of our sites so far, and I'm going to do our high school next week, I just wanted to walk through and share with you what I've been sharing at all of our sites with all of our staff. I also, when I'm done with the high school, then what I will do is I will do a voiced over presentation of this as well, and I'll put it out there to all of our staff. So any of our PSAs, any of our cooks, any of our custodians that work different shifts and they couldn't get to my meeting, they can access it. Also, we have some coaches that can't get to those meetings so that they can access it as well. And again, letting you know as a board that we know what the research says, and Scott McQueen and Kelly Smith shared that with, the 3 of us in our facility committee. Your staff being well informed is still the #1 thing that you can do to promote your schools, promote your bonds, and promote your levies. It's still better than e-news, it's better than tweeting, it's better than Facebook, because we have over 600 employees and they talk to people and people ask them questions. And if our staff are well informed and answer those questions, it promotes both the bond and levies, and it just promotes goodwill and a good feeling about the school district. So every year at this time I've done it. Every year at this time I will always go out and give the financial report. I know it's not exciting, it's not stimulating, it's not sexy, and most of our staff could probably give it by now because they know what I'm going to say. But I tie it into some of what I'll call as our next 3-year phase, and I also want to share that while we're on Hastings cable television as well. And I start out by sharing that this is what's going to happen in the next 3 years for us as a school district. I'm 98% certain that the committee is going to come back and say we need to go for a bond this fall. We need to reinvest in our roofs, we need to reinvest in our HVAC, our security systems, some technology, basic technology, and some other something. In between there, this year and next year, we're going to make budget reductions. And that's difficult to explain, that this pot of money is for buildings, and we have a checkbook that can only be spent on buildings. And reducing your operating budget is this pot of money, which is your savings account to pay for payroll, electricity, etc. And then in the year 2019, we need to renew an operating levy, and I believe we're going to have to ask our community for an increase in the operating levy because we haven't done that in 8 to 10 years of that increase. If I had my wish, I would not do it in that order. If I had my wish, this fall we'd be going to renew an operating levy and ask for an increase to get that in hand, because that's the core of what we do. Then we would still make reductions along the way, and then I'd go for a bond in the fall of 2019. However, our roofs can't wait until 2019. Our middle school can't wait until 2019. Our staff knows that, as we emptied 1,400 students to Pinecrest 2 weeks ago because a pump started smoking. A pump that was built and manufactured in 1969 started smoking and blew out. And that's the system that we need to reinvest in. So one of my fears is that we go for this bond in 2017 and it gets approved because people understand roofs, windows, parking lots, security. But they don't understand the two different pots of money. And then we come back in 2019 and they say, wait a minute, Tim, and school board, you just came to me in 2017, what did you do with that money? And so I have that fear, I'm aware of it, we need to have very direct communication about it, and that's why we're already leading out right now when I'm out talking to sites. And once I'm done talking to sites, then I'll start talking about that aspect more in the newspaper, and I'll start talking about that more in Hastings cable television, trying to get that information, and then I'll start some e-news on that separation. So then that leads into our financial report, and every site has had this answer correct. So that means I've done a great job teaching over the last 14 years. Other than salaries and payroll, which makes up 80% of your budget, so contracts, what's the number one thing that impacts your budget? And everybody says declining enrollment. And I'm like, yes, it does, because your enrollment and your students ties to everything. It ties to what you have coming in for title, it has what the state's going to give you, what's your operating levy. That's how we receive money based on your students. So I said that we've been in this decline, and the dark numbers are what we know for sure. The projected numbers we'll know here shortly when this year ends of what are 2016-17. And I said, unfortunately, we've been pretty accurate on this over the last 14 years. I wish that we were wrong on this, but we've been pretty accurate on this. And in the past few years, I've always gone out and said, people say, well, why is our enrollment declining? And I say, people are having fewer children. You've heard me say that, people are just having fewer children. Yes, some students choose to go to Hill Murray, Farmington, Randolph, and we've always had that. But I keep saying that our community is getting older and it's growing, and we're just not having as many children. But for whatever reason, these two graphs have seemed to take some traction this year. And that's part of what I showed at our facility committee. That if you look in the Hastings district of how many females are in childbearing years in 2013 compared to 2018, you can see that in almost every category, there's going to be fewer females in childbearing years in the Hastings School District than there were 5 years ago. Another way to look at it is, what is the median age of females in the Hastings School District? And when you've gone from 26.4 as a median age to the median age of 41.2 in the Hastings School District, I asked the question, how many people in the audience of our staff believe that we're going to have an increase in enrollment in the next 5 years? And there's not one hand that goes up, because you can get the feel that Hastings is growing, and it is. The Hastings Community School District is growing in population, but it's not going to turn around. And I also share this, that that doesn't mean that our school district is in this huge, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? We have 310 first graders right now. That means a decade from now, we're going to have 340 in our graduating class. That's still a great size school. That's great opportunities. That's still a lot of enriched opportunities. 15 years from now, we're still going to have 290 in our graduating class. I graduated with 35 in my graduating class. There were 26 of my brothers. We didn't have much opportunity. I didn't realize it then. Well, I had an opportunity to participate in track and baseball because they needed me in both. But other than that, there was not a lot of opportunity. Hastings School District is still going to be very vibrant with a lot of enriched opportunities. We need to try to get to stability for funding and planning, which is very, very difficult. And I then talked about the fact that Kim and I, back in November and December, shared that we're projecting we're going to be 1.5 to 2 million over. And, well, how can you have this bubble, this range? And I said it's based on a lot of assumptions. And I talked about the Shakopee School District, that people who have been watching the news, they see that Shakopee has been over budget by $4.5 million for the next year. And anybody who knows that I'm a superintendent, they say, how's that possible? How could you be off budget by $4.5 million? And I say, well, yes, there was a mistake there. There were some numbers that weren't carried forward in the budget, and I'll acknowledge that. But Kim and I acknowledge that we can be 500,000 off of this budget and maybe a little bit more depending on if our assumptions go wrong. And I talk about the fact that I have to make these predictions and Kim has to make these predictions for the board back in November when we don't even have these things settled right now in March. So I'm trying to project the market for transportation contract, and so we put in 1%, 1%. Kim and I know right now, because we've just received some of the bids again, we're about 1%, 1% now. So we were off on that assumption. We projected back in November, and I'm pretty happy about our projections because we're pretty close. If you've been following, the state's saying it's going to be somewhere between 1.5 and 2, but then they're going to increase TRA by 0.5%. So back in November, we were thinking 1.5 of what we made this budget off of, so pretty close. Our health insurance, we know now that the first number is correct, it's 2% because we've, you're going to be voting and approving that, and we're guessing the next year is 4%. And I know that Andy and Scott, who sit on our health insurance committee, know that we're very fortunate to be at that's not the national trend right now. Our teacher settlement is not included in this budget, and that's a little bit different a philosophy that Kim and I have brought forward. What we did was we moved every teacher a step, but we didn't put in it at a 1% new money or 2%. So we just said no new money. And so whatever we get settled at, then that's going to impact this number. And that's why we say 1.5 to 2 million. That's one of the what ifs. Special ed revenue, you've heard me before, we're getting closer on that, but the changes in the formula still make us say, oh, what's happening there? So I compare this to Shakopee real quick, and I say that if we're off by 50 students in Hastings, that's 9,000 a student. That's 450,000. Shakopee is about 3 times our size. They could be off, they're the fastest growing district in the state of Minnesota. So they could be off by 1.5 million. Our special ed aid last year, I told you as a board, it was going to be somewhere between 400 to 600,000 because the state changed these formulas. Shakopee, 3 times our size, 1.8 million. So I know how they could easily be off $3 million. And so I'm not defending them, but I want to bring education and light on how there are so many variables that a board and Kim and I are trying to project. And we're like the weathermen. We're never going to be 100% right, never. Because we're never going to hit all those assumptions correctly. So then I talk about how I work with you as a board. I meet with the finance committee, and then I meet with you at work sessions, and we talk about, well, what do we think the state will give us? Do you guys think that we're accurate? What should we put in? We talk about, what will the contract settlement be? We talk about our 7 million fund balance cap that we have, and I share that the reason the board put that cap in years ago was we need so much money to pay our payroll. We don't have all that money always sitting in our bank. It's there on paper. The state is paying us, the federal government is paying us when they want to pay us on their timeline. Also, for very veteran board members, they remember 6 to 8 years ago when the state said, yeah, we know we owe you, but we're only going to pay you 80% of what we owe you. And so remember that? I mean, veteran board member were like, what? We got an IOU slip? We can't pay our teachers with an IOU slip. So our board met with our auditors and said, if you have a 2-month operating fund balance, then you don't have to borrow money to pay what you owe. I said, so because we have that money there, we're not out borrowing money to have to pay our payroll. You take a Shakopee that's 3 times our size and they have a 1.7 million fund balance, guess what? They're borrowing money to just make their payroll, and we all know what happens when you have to borrow. It's a cost. So I said that's why the board said we have that 7 million cap. We ask ourselves as a board, okay, what are the odds are we going to be able to renew our levy, one of our levies in 2019? And then what are the odds that we'd be able to get an increase? These are all the behind-the-scenes discussions that we have as a board. And our board knows about the special ed revenue as well. And so we put that all together, and through a lot of discussion, and not always agreement, a lot of trying to get to consensus, we came up with reducing 500,000. I shared that there were board members that ranged from cutting 1.2 million to 1 million to 750,000 to 500,000. But in the end, we settled on the 500,000 because 1 year from today, we will know what the state gave us. That'll be solid information. 1 year from today, we'll know what our teacher contract is settled at. 1 year from today, we will know what we're raising our health insurance by. 1 year from today, we'll now have more solid information on the special ed revenue. So, we want to make decisions as a board where we're better educated. And we're gonna have that data 1 year from today. But make no mistake, we're not blind, and we as a board aren't sticking our head in the sands and saying, well, that problem's gonna go away. We know we're gonna have to make larger cuts 1 year from now. But I don't want the community, and that's why I'm glad that this is being taped, to be like a Shakopee and say, what? Nobody told us that this was coming. We're very transparent, we're letting people know, but we're gonna make decisions based on great data. And because we have a nice fund balance, we can take some of our time and make these decisions. And then I share that it's my belief that even if we cut 2 million a year from now, we're going to be 1 million over budget the following year, because as your enrollment goes down, your revenue goes down and your costs keep going up. So with that, I also remind them of where our fund balance is at. It's interesting now when I'm standing in front of a room of 50 staff members, I say, how many of you were here back in 2003 when I first came? And it's getting to be about only 20%. So I'm getting older. But they all remember the years back here where we were 1.7 million in the red. And they remembered there was no patience, we had to just make cuts. And then from closing Cooper to transitioning out of Tilden, to redrawing our boundary lines, to the transportation now with kindergartners riding with seniors, we have, and our community passing
Levies, yeah.
2 levies. Thank you, community. We've built up that fund balance, so now in the year 2017, we can take our time. But we've been spending it down slightly over the last few years, and I do believe that we're gonna probably, when it's all said and done, because this was asked to me today, well, Tim, you said that the range was 1.5 to 2 million. Where do you think we're gonna end up now that you've cut 500,000? And I said, well, let's just start out with 1.5 million. We cut 500,000, we're back to 1 million. But transportation is more than 1%, so we're about back up to 1.1 million. We've given nothing on the contracts yet, so I think we're going to be
0.5% to TRA.
0.5% to TRA. So that is really where I do think we're going to be at, or roughly in that area. So then I said, this is not settled yet, but this, I've presented it to the administrators, and I've presented it to the board roughly, but we have not had a chance to fine tune and finalize it. And we will, at our next work session, we'll have more discussion on this, and then I'll fine tune it, and we will finalize it at our April school board meeting. And I said, you know, even though we're a larger district than what I grew up in, we're still a small school district, and people know who some of these names are, even though for data privacy, I mean, you know who some of these. But so what I said was that typically when we take a veteran teacher at this salary and we hire a less experienced teacher at this salary, we have roughly about $41,000 in savings. However, for those top 2 positions, I don't want to put down $41,000 because I know that we won't be replacing a high school vocal music with a first-year teacher. I know that it will be a veteran 8 to 12-year teacher that will replace, and he doesn't mind, it's Lynn Warren. I also know that when you replace a counselor, they come in with a master's degree. So they're not going to be your typical first-year teacher. So again, I put down $35,000 of what I believe that our budget will be reduced by. We had a couple of elementary teachers that retired this year, so I told our elementary principals, we will replace one of them, so we will hire somebody new for that position, and we'll save the $41,000. We have a very veteran secretary. I believe you'll be acting on her retirement tonight, and so there's a savings when you go to a less experienced secretary. The next one, the middle school teacher, that's really middle school, high school, and it's vocal music, and, or excuse me, it's band and music and enrichment classes. And we knew that whenever we had a resignation or retirement in that area, we weren't going to replace. We've known that for the last 3 years as our numbers have decreased, and this was the year that we would not replace. So when you don't replace a teacher, you know, it's that's 115,000. And I share that if my daughter would be here, who's a first-year teacher, she would look at that and say, "You make that much in Hastings?" And I'm like, "No, that's a very veteran teacher, that's TRA, that's FICA, that's family health insurance, that Kim knows all the other categories." But yes, when you don't replace, that is the savings. Then I met with the elementary principals and I said, we're going to be down one, we're going to reduce, we're not going to replace the other elementary teacher. And I don't know if it's going to be JFK, Pinecrest, or McCullough. I let them tell me that. So again, when you don't replace, that's the savings. Then at the high school, because it's a teacher that has less experience, that was hired for just this year for a leave situation, then the savings. So the high school will be down in social studies, one teacher, so class sizes will go up in social studies. Then the last one is a combination of, we had 2 retirements at the middle school, and we have a 7th grade class that's coming through that's small. So Mark knew that this year you'd have one less section of math, one less section of language arts, one less section of earth science, etc. But when you're structured in the middle school, so it's partially replacing some of that, and some of it's not replacing. And so when you look at all these numbers combined, it's about equal to a 1 FTE. So Mark will take a 7th grade teacher, and that 7th grade teacher will go in and teach part of the math, and in 5th grade. I don't know for sure, but that's where we're looking. He'll take part of a social studies teacher, language arts, and they will go in and teach 5th grade, and then some of it he's not going to replace. So when you get to the total, it's 522,000, right around that number that the board had given me as a target, and given our administrators as a target. And again, tonight wasn't the purpose to hop in discussion. It was just to let you hear what I'm out saying to the sites. One of the questions that came back that I think is important for you to hear as a school board is, okay, Tim, you said that one of the elementary teachers, you're going to replace it. When will we know who is where? When will we know? Will we know by June 9th that who's teaching 3rd grade, who's teaching 4th grade, et cetera? And I said that 95% of the elementary teachers will. However, right now at JFK Elementary, we have 42 students registered for kindergarten. 42 students at JFK, that'd be 2 sections of kindergarten at JFK. So, and we've got about 95 at Pinecrest and 95 at McCullough. Last year at this time, we had about 95 and 95 and 68, 65 at JFK. So I said, unfortunately, and even though we don't want to do it, we don't want to overstaff when we're already over budget. So unfortunately, there's going to be a few teachers where I'm going to pretend that Lisa's a kindergarten teacher, and Kyle Latch is going to have to go up to her and say, Lisa, I'm sorry, but we're down 2 sections right now, so as of right now, I'm going to move you to be a 4th grade teacher. I'm just making this part up because I don't know where, but I'm going to move you to a 4th grade at McCullough. Now, if we get enough kindergarten students, would you like to come back in August as a kindergarten teacher, or would you prefer to just stay 4th grade? And for anybody who's ever taught, the difference between kindergarten resources and 4th grade resources is huge. How you structure your room, the materials for the room, is huge. And quite honestly, unless kindergarten is absolutely your love, you would probably say, you know what, Kyle, move me to that position, and I won't want to get yo-yoed back on August 15th, because we as a board know, guess when we get all of our last registrations? We don't get them in June, we don't get them in July, they come flying in August. I also think, tying it back to the Shakopee, my guess, and I don't know, but part of their problem is they're one of the fastest growing school districts in the state of Minnesota. They were staffing up for it, and it didn't come. So my guess is they were hiring based on 100 students coming into a JFK elementary and only 42 came, and now they had the extra staffing. So it wasn't like they wasted money. It was spent on lowering class sizes, and the last 3 or 4 years, unfortunately, we as a district have had to take that approach. And it's frustrating for those 3 or 4 staff members, and it's frustrating for some of our parents who all of a sudden are told, yes, Lisa is your teacher now. Whoops, no, she's not. Now Scott is. And not that they don't like Scott, but it's just, that not knowing right when you're heading into the school year. So again, I haven't had a lot of, questions from our staff. I think that one of the things that they appreciate is that in this situation, we as a board haven't had to go up to too many people. There's really one person we're going to have to say that you're not going to have a job here next year. And so our staff appreciate, that fact. I said to them that I don't want to cause panic. I don't want our younger teachers who are 24 and 25 years old to say, oh my goodness, it looks like 2 million, I'm getting out of here for sure. Because we do know that every year we have 5 teachers retire. We have some people that get married and move on. We have some people that relocate. So at that time, we're still gonna have to downsize, but we won't have to impact that many. But let's also not put our head in the sand and believe that we're not going to have to tell some staff members next year at this time that we're gonna have to downsize. So I think, again, the staff appreciates that, knowing that a year in advance so that they can make their planning as well. And again, when I do that taping, and I'll do my voiceover of this same presentation, that'll go out to all staff. It'll also be on our website. At that time, Deanna will Facebook it. We'll probably do a School Connects with it, letting the community know. In addition to, I'll probably schedule after you as a board approve it at the work session of us moving forward or saying, yes, bring this to the public the following week, then I'll have a community meeting. I quite honestly wouldn't anticipate a lot of people coming to that community meeting because class sizes aren't going to be going up a lot, because we're typically right sizing in the areas where we have the declining enrollment. All right.
Okay.
That's it. I didn't add anything else.
Thank you. Okay, there's no other, I don't have to rub lemon juice on my screen and see if there's any additional items. Okay, terrific. We're gonna move on to the action items. I see that we have quite a number related to our self-funded health insurance. So please, those of you who serve on that committee, if you want to have any insights you want to provide as we go along, that would be terrific. So our first action item is a motion to increase the premium of the self-funded health insurance by 2% for 2017-18 school year. Could I get a motion? And a second?
So moved.
Second?
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
I'll just point out that compared to the rest of the world, 2% is phenomenal. We're seeing probably an average of from 7 to 9% annually, still across the board. I think it's pretty consistent. This year's been a little bit worse, but knock on wood, 2% last couple of years. Thank you. Performed very well, and it's because of it, it's helping out with some of the things that Tim's talking about too, that we don't have to. It's not as bad as it could be if we were running what the rest of the world is trending to right now.
Yeah.
And even at 2%, if things continue as they have over the last few years, we'll still be adding money to the self-funded health insurance bottom line.
Yeah.
So, and protecting that even a little bit more. So.
Good. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Our next motion is to approve Preferred One as the self-funded health insurance provider for the 2017-18 and 2018-19 school years. Could I get a motion in a second?
All motion. Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this item?
This again is the result of the process of going out for bid. So as we get the bids back, they come in as a sealed bid, we open those, we go through them, then we circle back with the providers to ask questions. Now that we have the bids, we can compare and try to really get the best deal that we can. So Preferred One, yet again, came out where we hoped they would, so.
Terrific. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Our next motion is to approve the fixed fee bid from Preferred One for the 2017-2018 school year. Could I get a motion in a second?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? I think this maybe carries over a little bit.
It does. This is part of the
Same link.
same bid.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to approve One Digital CHS Trust Point for the HRA/trust account. Could I get a motion in a second?
I'll motion. And second?
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this item? No? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Our fifth action item, a motion to approve Health Partners administration fee of $5.80 for the 2017-2018 school year. Could I get a motion in a second?
I'll motion.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
I just want to share that, once again, this committee is comprised of not only Andy and Scott and myself and Kim and Jen, but also 4 teachers that, somewhere 4 to 5 teachers and a PSA as well. And again, thank you for their commitment, because they're giving an hour and a half after school every month to review and ask good questions. And again, it's been a really good committee, and they're very well educated on the self-funded pool now, which is going to help us in our discussion as we move forward with future discussion of how should we structure our health insurance. So thank you to the time commitment that they've given as well. It's been a good committee.
All right, thank you. All those in favor of the motion to approve Health Partners administration fee, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Our sixth action item, motion to approve the 2016 to 2018 Teamsters Local 325 Community Education Paraprofessional Contract. Could I get a motion in a second?
Motion.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Just want to share, thank you for the agreement and the vote, and it's followed the line with all of our other contract offers as far as terms of financials, and so that's definitely what we've wanted when we enter into bargaining with these groups.
Terrific. All those in favor of the motion on the table, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Our seventh action item, motion to approve the 2016-17 non-public transportation reimbursement rate of $225 per student for families whose children attend non-public schools outside of District 200. Could I get a motion in a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this item?
I forgot to share, and I know the veteran board members know about this, but
This is a common.
yeah, I forgot to share
motion.
this. What happens is the state of Minnesota sends us a set amount of dollars to be provided to families who transport outside of the district. What we do then is we try to look at, we make no money on this, but we don't want to lose money on it either. So we take that set number of dollars and we divide it by what we believe have been the average participants, and that's how we come up with this $225. So if next year they would give us $10,000 more dollars, this might be $380. If they give us $3,000 less, this might be $190. So we as a school district never make money on it. We don't lose money. We're just a vehicle to distribute it.
Is this where I ask if the pun about vehicle was intended or not? Since we're taking a transportation motion?
No.
Okay.
It's not the point.
This is not the time to ask that.
No.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, so all those in favor of the motion on the table, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Our 8th action item is a motion to approve the 2018-19 school calendar that was provided in everybody's Dropbox. Could I get a motion and a second?
I'll motion.
Second?
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this item?
I just appreciate the committee. I'm glad I don't have to sit on the committee because there's lots of opinions that come, whether it be early outs when we have the days off, parent conferences, the difference in thoughts on conferences for elementary student versus middle school student, workshop time, et cetera. So thank you to Mike Johnson for leading this committee for, he'll be the chair of this until he retires. But, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of discussion, it takes surveying your staff, and that's why I don't spend a lot of time with you as a school board on it. I just feel it's gone through the committee process, and there's been a lot of discussion. We need to get in so many contract days, so many student days, and the committee knows that. I think I told Lisa, I don't know if I shared this with some of you as board members, but if we would go for a bond in the fall of 2017, we may have to adjust this because of when we'd want to early out or start the school
When we
year.
want to, yeah, and then start the school
So
year.
we're going to approve it, but with a cautionary note that we might be revisiting this down the road.
All right. All right, we'll take a vote on the motion on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Our ninth action item is a motion to approve the resignation of the following, and we have 4 employees who are resigning. Could I get a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Our 10th action item, motion to approve leaves for a couple of individuals. Could I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second?
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to approve the retirement of the following individuals. We have 4 individuals retiring.
There's a, go ahead.
A
I'll
motion
make,
and
I'll
a
make that
second?
motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
I was just gonna
Discussion?
comment that there's a lot of years of experience there, and I know that my kids have come in contact with a few of those people. There's over 120 years of experience
Right.
walking out the door, so
Yeah.
thank you to them.
Absolutely. And given that, I did actually talk to somebody once just outside here in the last couple of weeks saying, how come you never read the names, as we run through this? And I think personally with regard to leave and stuff, if somebody wants to look up the agenda and see it, so be it. But I think with regard to the people that are choosing to retire and that have given so many years of fabulous service to our district, we are looking at the retirement of Franny Vulcan, Scott Papp, Cindy Sandcamp, and Rick Wheeler. Those are the retirements that we're taking action on, and I just would second Scott's comments. They've given decades of fabulous service to our district. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion on the table?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to approve the employment of 4 people in a variety of positions. Could I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We then have some upcoming meeting dates. Our next work session, which will be here.
Yep.
The district office is the 12th of April, 6 o'clock start time. Everybody was on time, and this was super early. I don't know why this felt super early, but I will say it got me out of cleaning up the kitchen after dinner. I was like, oh, clearly, gotta go, just gotta go. So I like 6 o'clock start time. We have a student luncheon on the 18th, and our next regular board meeting, full board, will be here on the 26th of April. 6 o'clock start time.
So I just wanted to share that I read this the other day with Jen. She's going to fine tune it even a little bit more. I thought it was some really good concise information about our GT program and some of the continued improved efforts in communication. And we're also right now in the process of upgrading our website design. We're making decisions, we're fine tuning that. And then once we get that finalized, this will be part of that as well. So sometimes I send this to you electronically, but I have this feeling that if you receive this electronically, you might not read it because it's quite lengthy.
It's dense.
So I decided to do it the old-fashioned way and give it to you paper, so that way you might read a little bit about it. So I just laid that out for you.
Okay, thank you. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Perfect. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody.
Usually our board meetings are 4 hours long, but because you were here, we started.